The Knicks are heavily monitoring the situation in Minnesota for Karl Anthony-Towns. According to one NBA insider, right now may be the perfect time for the New York Knicks to trade for Towns. Because according to this insider, Cat's value is down. And that might mean the Knicks might be able to swoop in and get Towns on a relatively cheap trade offer. We're going to break down the report, see exactly what this insider said, and see if the Knicks might be able to pull the trigger and make that trade for Karl Anthony-Towns during this season. All of that and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. According to one NBA insider, right now might be the perfect time for the New York Knicks to trade for Cat. Now, we've heard all offseason Cat's name be brought up in trade rumors and trade scenarios that have him being dealt to the New York Knicks. But obviously, the Knicks haven't traded for Cat yet because everybody knows the prize on the Knicks' mind is Joel Embiid. But with the 76ers getting off to a great start and being the top team in the Eastern Conference right now, the Knicks might look elsewhere to upgrade their roster and get a big man for the modern age. And one name that fits that bill is Karl Anthony-Towns. And according to one NBA insider in Tim Bontemps for ESPN, he reports that Towns' value might be down right now, and the perfect time to trade for him is right now, before he starts that Supermax. On a recent episode of the Hoop Collective podcast, NBA insider Tim McMahon suggested that a potential Knicks-Towns union should happen this year to avoid contract issues. According to McMahon, if you are going to trade for Towns, you probably want to trade him this year when he's making $36 million and not next year when he's making $49 million. McMahon explained that he believes you can make both a basketball trade and a financial trade with Towns. If you can get a couple of really solid role players who are on shorter term deals, it might be something the Wolves would need to pounce on. This was a great update here by ESPN NBA insider Tim McMahon, who basically tells us that right now may be the perfect time for the Knicks to make this trade for Cat because number one, he doesn't start that Supermax till next year, so the money works right now. But also number two, according to McMahon, his value right now may be down, and he's not the only ESPN NBA insider to state this. According to another ESPN NBA insider in Brian Windhorst, he also suggests that he isn't sure the Timberwolves could get picks for Towns in a trade right now, basically suggesting that his value is currently down. He states the following: after this season, regardless of the Wolves situation, any trade where you're getting off of money is going to be a little bit harder because there's going to be less teams that you can get off money with. Shout out to Brian Windhorst for this very crucial and important update on the Knicks' pursuit of Karl Anthony-Towns because he basically doubles down on what Tim McMahon said as well. Karl Anthony-Towns' value is absolutely down because if the Timberwolves would accept role players and may not be able to get first round picks for Towns, but might be able to offload his contract to another team so they don't have to think about it going into next season, that might be enough for them to want to make a trade to deal Towns right now. And that's important to note because right now the Timberwolves look like a very good team. Their defense looks very good as well too. But these NBA insiders are noting that the Minnesota Timberwolves are looking at and thinking about contract and the players that they have on their contract payroll right now because they can only pay so many players. And Towns is set to make super max money. That is a high jump from what he's making right now. I believe it's a $13 million jump from what he's making right now. So that's a lot of money to think about if you're the Timberwolves. And if we look at Towns' total extension contract value, it's 6 years, $295 million, according to the New York Post. Next season, the Timberwolves will owe $165 million to their top 5 players, including Towns, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, and Naz Reid. Offloading Towns, according to the New York Post, could help keep Minnesota out of dipping into the luxury tax. The Timberwolves are going to have to decide what players they're going to pay because they can't pay everybody. And we have to remember, Towns is going to make super max money. So the Timberwolves are going to have to decide what players they want to keep and pay and what players they might want to offload. And what NBA insiders Brian Windhorst and Tim McMahon said, and basically mentioning that Towns' value is down right now, might be music to Leon Rose's ears. Because like I mentioned, if Joel Embiid is off the table and he's not the star that they can get because the Sixers are doing so well, he commits to the 76ers and he speaks publicly saying that he doesn't want to be traded and he wants to end his career there. Let's say that happens. And Leon Rose thinks there's no shot that the Sixers would trade Joel Embiid at all, then I think Leon Rose would look elsewhere. And given these reports that we're hearing from these NBA insiders, and I think we all know, Leon Rose does not like to take a lot of risks, and he does not like to give up a lot of assets in any trade. But if he can get somebody who might be considered a superstar by some players in the league right now, in Karl Anthony-Towns, somebody who you could say is one of the best, if not the best, big man three-point shooter in the league. If you could get him, more or less steal him from another team who's trying to offload him because his contract is too expensive, and also is not seeking a lot of first-round picks, but might be seeking role players, if that's the case, Leon Rose might pick up the phone, call Minnesota, and see if he can get Towns on this Knicks team. And I think he might absolutely do it if the trade is cheap enough and it's not that expensive for the Knicks to do it. And if that's the case, I see the Knicks and Leon Rose pulling the trigger and making this trade. Because Leon Rose is all about getting talent at a very low cost. And if he can steal a player like Cat, and he has to just absorb that contract, and that's the worst effect of the trade, I think Leon Rose does it. I think Cat is a Knick, and I think that's the team you have to talk about the Knicks having going forward. And some Knick fans may not like it. And if you know me and you've been following my channel, you know that I already agree that I think Towns is not the answer for the Knicks. Because if you make a trade for Towns, you are still one player away from competing for that championship. I don't think it moves the needle enough for the Knicks to make that trade. However, if they're going to steal Karl Anthony-Towns and not have to give up that much in a trade for him, I may want to listen to it. But it's going to have to depend on who's going to be included in that trade and who we get to retain on the Knicks after the deal is done. Those are going to be the most important factors for me in any type of Karl Anthony-Towns trade the Knicks tries to go after or do. But right now, according to these insiders, it might be the perfect time for the Knicks to make this deal. And that scares me because they're right. The money makes sense. The Knicks have the assets and players to make it work. They have the ability to take on that type of contract as well too. And Towns has all the connections to Leon Rose and New York and this Knicks team. Not to mention, he'd be starting a supermax, so it's not like he'd be going anywhere. So the Knicks would have control of his future for a very long time. It checks a lot of boxes if you're the Knicks. And unfortunately, if you're like me and you don't want Towns on this Knicks team, a lot of things are pointing in the direction right now that the Knicks may make that move and trade for Karl Anthony-Towns, especially if they think making that move puts them in contention in the Eastern Conference. But what about you guys? Let me know in the comments. How would you feel if the Knicks made a trade for Karl Anthony-Towns? What if they didn't have to gut their team to get Towns? Would you be okay with that deal? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.